Imagine you're watching a public speaker standing in front of a really crowded room.
Ugh, stressful right from the start.
Right. Very stressful. And this speaker is just actively ruining their grammar. I mean, they are forgetting their vocabulary right in the middle of the sentence, and they are mispronouncing like every third word.
So basically a complete nightmare scenario for anyone trying to speak in public.
Exactly. By every normal rule of public speaking, it is a total catastrophic failure. But then, I want you to imagine watching that exact same audience. They lean in. They are fully engaged.
Wow.
Yeah. They're essentially giving the speaker their complete, unblinking attention. Nobody is laughing at him.
That is wild. Because usually, you expect people to tune out or judge.
Exactly. So today we are doing a deep dive into a live autopsy of human interaction. Because this scenario proves that almost everything we learned in school about confidence is, well, it's entirely backward.
It really is. We are so focused on being perfect.
Right. We are unpacking this really fascinating, highly focused dialogue between two individuals. Their names are Aman and Ria. And this comes from a text titled The Art of Imperfect Confidence.
Such a great title, by the way.
It is. And they deconstruct this exact real-world scenario. A man speaking broken English to a captivated crowd. And they try to figure out the hidden mechanics of what true confidence actually is.
Which is so helpful for, anyone learning a new language or just trying to speak up more.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out why technical perfection so often fails to persuade people. And why embracing your visible flaws might actually be the most powerful communication tool we possess.
I love that. Embracing the flaws.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because if confidence isn't about being flawless, if it isn't about, the absolute mastery of the material, then what on earth is it actually built on?
Well, that is the central paradox we have to resolve today. And honestly, it requires us to completely dismantle our traditional understanding of communication.
Dismantle it completely.
Yeah. Because we operate under this collective, deeply ingrained delusion that confidence only comes from absolute competence.
Like you have to be an expert to feel confident.
Exactly. We are taught that if you want to be confident, you must first eliminate every single possible margin of error. You have to be perfect.
Which is impossible, right?
Completely impossible. But the dialogue between Aman and Ria, it shatters that assumption within the first few lines. To really get to the body of what confidence is, we have to look at how human beings actually process information.
Okay, so how do we actually process it?
Well, it is vastly different from how a textbook tells us we should process it. Our brains don't care about the rules as much as we think they do.
Right, and to bridge that gap between the theory and the reality, we have to look at the observation Aman makes to kick off this whole dialogue.
It's such a good observation.
It really is. He comes to Rio with a story that clearly, disrupted his whole worldview. He literally says, "Can I tell you something strange?"
I love when conversations start like that.
Me too. And he proceeds to recount watching this man speak English to a group. And Aman is very clinical in his observation. He notes all the objective flaws.
Right. He's basically grading him like a teacher.
Exactly. He notes that the man made grammar mistakes. He blatantly forgot words. He mispronounced things. It was a technically messy performance.
It's a total mess on paper.
Yeah. Yet the audience didn't disengage. Aman says nobody cared. The speaker looked comfortable. He smiled. And he just kept going.
What's fascinating here is the massive disconnect between syntax and semantics.
Okay, hold on. Syntax and semantics. So let's break that down for the listener. Simple terms.
Yeah, of course. So syntax is basically the structural rules, grammar, pronunciation, using the right tense, the stuff you get tested on in school.
Right, textbook stuff.
Exactly. And semantics is the underlying meaning, the intent behind the words. What are you actually trying to say?
Okay, so the rules versus the actual message.
Precisely. In an academic setting, syntax is everything. But in real-life social situations, the human brain is primarily hunting for semantics. It just wants the meaning.
So the audience just wants to know what the guy's trying to say. They don't care about how perfectly he says it.
Exactly. Eamon is watching a real-time demonstration of emotional contagion. When he notes that the speaker looked comfortable and smiled, he is observing the speaker essentially hijack the audience's neurobiology.
Hijack their neurobiology. Wow. That sounds a bit aggressive for a guy just smiling through a grammar mistake, don't you think?
It does sound intense.
Break down the actual mechanism there for me. How does a simple smile override completely broken sentence?
It gets down to something called mirror neurons. And, well, the evolutionary purpose of communication.
Okay, mirror neurons. I've heard of those.
Yeah, human beings are incredibly sensitive to nonverbal cues. Because for the vast majority of our history as humans, nonverbal communication was literally all we had.
Right. Before we had complex languages, we just had body language and facial expressions.
Exactly. So when we observe someone else, our mirror neurons fire in a way that actually simulates the emotional state of the person we are watching.
Wait, really? So we literally feel what they feel?
Yes, if a speaker projects anxiety or hesitation and this desperate fear of making a mistake, the audience subconsciously mirrors that tension. We literally feel their discomfort in our own bodies.
Oh, wow. I have definitely felt that. Like when someone is giving a speech and they are shaking, I start feeling nervous for them. It's so uncomfortable.
Exactly. Your amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center, it starts flashing this low-level warning. It tells you, hey, something is wrong with this social interaction.
It makes so much sense.
But when a speaker projects warmth and physical comfort and just a total acceptance of the moment, the audience relaxes.
So his smile is basically doing the heavy lifting.
Yes, the speaker's physical ease sends a continuous overriding signal to the audience. It tells their nervous system, I'm safe, this environment is safe, there is no threat here.
So the smile acts as a physiological permission slip for the audience to just like lower their own defenses.
That is a brilliant way to put it, yes.
That completely inverts the traditional academic model. We are taught to obsess over the mechanics, right? Subject-verb agreement, remembering the exact vocabulary word, the precise pronunciation.
We spend years agonizing over it.
Right. But here is this guy breaking all those rules, and the crowd is totally with him because his body language is telling them it's okay.
You know, it makes me think of an analogy.
Oh, I love analogies. Let's hear it.
Imagine you are at a live rock concert. The energy is massive, the lights are sweeping over the crowd, everyone is having a great time.
Best feeling ever.
Yeah. And right in the climax of this huge epic guitar solo, the guitarist completely whiffs a note. Like it is a discordant, objectively terrible note.
Ouch. Yeah.
But what does the rock star do? They don't stop the song. They don't grimace, drop their shoulders, and apologize into the microphone, right?
No, never. They get booed. Exactly. They just sweat, they grin, they lean back, and they keep rocking out as if that chaotic noise was exactly what they intended to play all along.
They just own it.
They own it. And the crowd goes wild. They just feed off the momentum. But if that exact same guitarist stocks, looks terrified, and says, sorry, everyone, let me restart that solo, the magic is instantly destroyed.
It really is. The energy just dies.
Right. The audience feels deeply uncomfortable because the performer feels deeply uncomfortable.
That is a perfect encapsulation of the psychological dynamic Aman witnessed in that room. Performance, whether it is musical or linguistic, is fundamentally about the transfer of energy.
The transfer of energy, I really like that.
Yeah, the rock guitarist and Aman's imperfect speaker both utilize the power of forward momentum. They use it to maintain the audience's trust.
Momentum seems to be the key word here.
It is. The sheer momentum of continuing to speak or play signals to the audience that the overarching message is far more important than the individual mistakes.
Right. Like the vibe is more important than the typo.
Exactly. The speaker is essentially prioritizing the destination over the bumps in the road. And audiences are cognitively wired to be generous if the speaker makes them feel safe.
Wow. So our brains just kind of forgive them.
Yes. If the semantic intent is clear and the emotional energy is positive, the listener's brain will literally autocorrect the mistakes.
I wanted to pause and challenge this, though, because, I see the value in momentum, and I totally understand the rock concert energy.
Right.
But isn't there a severe risk of crossing the line into sheer incompetence? Like, if we reward people just for being comfortable while they speak poorly, are we just lowering the bar for actual knowledge?
That is a very fair question.
If the guitarist plays only wrong notes, it's just noise, right? If a speaker's grammar is so broken that the words lose all their coherence, the audience has to tune out eventually. Where's the line between endearing imperfection and a total breakdown of communication?
That is a crucial distinction, and pushing back on the limits of this theory is definitely necessary. You are absolutely right that language is a tool for transmitting meaning.
Right. It has to actually work.
And if the structural integrity of the tool fails entirely, the meaning is lost. The concept of imperfect confidence does not advocate for, willful ignorance or just abandoning skill altogether.
Okay, so it's not an excuse to just never study.
Not at all. However, we have to look at the cognitive load of the listener. In linguistics, there is a concept known as the threshold of intelligibility.
The threshold of intelligibility, meaning the point where we can still understand what is going on.
Exactly. Amon's observation isn't about someone speaking random gibberish. It's about someone making standard, predictable errors. You know, using the wrong verb tense, dropping an article, or maybe substituting a broad word when they forget a specific noun.
Oh, I see. So the foundation is still there. It's just the aesthetic trim that's falling off the house.
That is a great way to visualize it, yes. And because the foundation is there, the listener's brain engages in something called the phonemic restoration effect.
Wait, phonemic restoration effect? That sounds like a magic trick.
It basically is. It means semantic prediction. As long as the speaker maintains an unbroken rhythm, the listener's brain automatically fills in the grammatical gaps.
Really? Without us even noticing?
Yes.
Yeah.
It corrects the mispronunciations in real time, often without the listener even consciously realizing they are doing it.
That is wild. Our brains are basically applying an autocomplete function to the conversation.
Exactly like autocomplete on your phone. And it requires far less cognitive effort for an audience to mentally fix a confident speaker's broken sentence than it does to endure the excruciating pauses of a nervous speaker.
Oh yeah, those long pauses where they are apologizing and visibly panicking, that is exhausting to watch.
It really is. So the bar for knowledge isn't being lowered here. The metric for success is simply being shifted. We are moving from flawless execution to effective connection.
That makes perfect sense. As long as the rhythm isn't broken, the brain does the heavy lifting. But this leads to a massive logical paradox.
Oh, yes, it does.
And it's the exact contradiction that Ria points out in the text. Because if audiences are genuinely this forgiving, if our brains naturally autocorrect mistakes for the sake of connection, then why does the professional world spend so much time punishing these mistakes?
It is the ultimate irony.
Right. Why are the so-called experts so terrified of making an error? Ria actually introduces the dark side of this linguistic equation. She responds to him by saying, exactly. And on the other side, there are people who know a lot of English but are too afraid to speak even 2 sentences.
Yes, Ria cuts right to the tragic core of the issue here. We have an entire population of individuals who possess an incredibly high level of technical knowledge.
Like they are brilliant on paper.
Exactly. They have memorized the vocabulary list, they understand the most complex grammatical rules, they can ace any written exam you put in front of them.
But then what happens?
When they are forced to practically apply that knowledge in a spontaneous, unscripted environment like a real conversation, they experience a complete systemic freeze.
Here is where it gets really interesting for me. Because the implication is that their deep knowledge isn't actually a tool anymore, it's a trap.
It really is a cage of their own making.
The very people who are most technically equipped to share brilliant ideas, the ones who have spent years building the skills to express themselves, are actively silencing themselves.
It is heartbreaking, honestly.
It is. Why does knowing more about the rules make them less capable of action?
It is a devastating combination of 2 psychological phenomena. The first is the curse of knowledge, and the second is the paralyzing effect of cognitive load.
Okay, let's break those down. The curse of knowledge.
So when someone studies a subject deeply, they develop a hyper-awareness of the rules. And consequently, they develop a hyper-awareness of every possible way those rules can be broken.
Ah, so they see danger everywhere.
Exactly. Their baseline standard for success mutates. It is no longer, did the audience understand my point? It becomes, did I articulate my point with 0 technical flaws?
Wow. They set absolute perfection as the baseline requirement just to participate in the conversation.
Yes.
That is an impossible standard. You know, it reminds me of a classic analogy. Imagine an engineer trying to explain how a smartphone works to someone who is totally non-technical. Like, say, my grandmother.
Oh, that is a recipe for disaster.
Right. Instead of just saying, you tap this glass to open your apps, the engineer is paralyzed because they know about the microprocessors and the conductive layers of the screen and the coding languages.
They know too much.
Exactly. They have so much high-level data that they can't figure out how to synthesize it perfectly on the spot, so they end up stuttering through a completely confusing explanation. Or they just get frustrated and say, never mind, it's too complicated.
And the grandmother learns nothing.
Right. The knowledge actually destroyed the communication.
That analogy perfectly isolates the problem. The engineer is suffering from a massive overload of working memory. Their cognitive load is too high.
So cognitive load just means their brain is too full of data to actually function naturally.
Exactly. In the context of Ria's observation about language, when the expert attempts to speak, their brain is doing too many things at once.
What are they trying to do?
They are simultaneously trying to recall vocabulary, conjugate verbs perfectly, police their own accent, and monitor the audience for any signs of judgment.
That sounds exhausting.
It maxes out their cognitive load. There is literally no processing power left for natural prosody, emotional warmth, or engaging momentum, the things that actually matter.
Wow. So they were running out of RAM, basically.
Exactly. And because perfection is an impossible standard in spontaneous speech, the brain calculates the risk, perceives any attempt to speak as a guaranteed failure, and triggers a physiological freeze response.
The freeze was, okay, wait. We usually associate that with physical danger, right? Like fight, flight, or freeze.
Yes, it is a primal survival instinct.
Are you saying the fear of making a grammar mistake triggers the exact same neurological alarm bell as, say, being chased by a wild animal?
From the brain's perspective, yes.
You're kidding.
I'm not. It comes back to evolutionary psychology and the concept of social evaluation threat.
Social evaluation threat.
Being judged by the group.
Right. For early humans, being judged negatively by the tribe and subsequently kicked out meant literal death. You could not survive alone in the wild.
Oh, wow. So being embarrassed was a life or death situation back then.
Exactly. And the modern brain still processes intense social judgment, like looking foolish or incompetent in front of a group, as a survival level threat.
That is intense.
When the knowledgeable person anticipates making a mistake, their amygdala hijacks the prefrontal cortex. The logic center literally shuts down, and the survival instinct takes over.
So they freeze.
Yes. They decide that silence is the only safe option. They choose the safety of remaining invisible over the vulnerability of being seen as flawed. That reframes the entire problem for me. Like, they aren't just being shy or quiet. Their nervous system is actively rebelling against the perceived threat of a grammatical error.
It is a biological reaction.
And the real tragedy here is that they are operating under a totally egocentric model of communication without even realizing it.
Oh, that is a great point. Egocentric. Unpack that.
Well, the knowledgeable person views a mistake as a direct attack on their personal intelligence.
Yeah.
They are entirely focused on protecting their own image. How do I look? What do they think of me?
Right. It's all about me.
Meanwhile, the imperfect speaker from Amon's story is operating on an audience-centric model. The imperfect speaker views a mistake as just a tiny bump in the road of getting the message to the listener.
They care more about the listener than themselves.
Exactly. The speaker values the audience's time and the connection more than they value their own ego.
That is a profound distinction. Egocentric protection versus audience-centric connection. The people Ria is talking about, the ones terrified to speak 2 sentences, are trapped.
Trapped by their own ego, basically.
Yes, because they falsely believe that confidence is a prerequisite for action. They think they must feel entirely fearless, completely competent, and totally secure in their perfection before they are even allowed to open their mouths.
Which means they are waiting for a biological and emotional state that is never, ever going to arrive.
Never.
If knowing all the rules actually makes you less likely to speak, and being blissfully ignorant of some rules, but willing to try, makes you more successful, then our entire dictionary definition of confidence is broken.
It is completely flawed.
The way society defines it is actively harming people. And this brings us to the massive shift in perspective that Amon and Ria arrive at in the text.
Yes, the dialogue hits a really critical inflection point right here. Amon synthesizes the evidence of his own story against Ria's counterpoint.
Right, he puts the two ideas together.
And he asks the only logical question left. He says, so maybe confidence doesn't come from being perfect.
It's like a light bulb goes off for him.
Exactly. It is a moment of deep cognitive dissonance. He is actively unlearning a lifetime of societal conditioning right there in the text.
And Ria does not mince words. She comes back with a definitive, uncompromising answer. She says confidence comes from accepting that you may not be perfect and doing the thing anyway.
Doing the thing anyway, that is the magic voice.
She entirely severs the link between confidence and perfection. But then she goes a step further and attacks a huge societal myth. She explicitly points out that people wrongly believe a confident person is someone who is never nervous.
If we connect this to the broader field of behavioral psychology, Ria is offering a masterclass in emotional regulation right now.
Masterclass.
How so?
Well, for decades, pop culture has fed us the myth of the stoic hero. We picture the archetype of the confident person as someone walking into a high-stakes room with a perfectly steady pulse, unshakable nerves, always knowing exactly the right thing to say.
Like James Bond or something, never sweating. Exactly. We have internalized this fiction that confidence is defined as the absolute absence of fear. But Ria is arguing that confidence is not a feeling.
It's not a feeling.
No, it is not a feeling of total calmness or invulnerability. Confidence is a behavioral choice. It is an action. It is the conscious decision to value the attempt more than you fear the failure.
Confidence is a verb, not an adjective.
I love that. Yes.
That completely rewires how we should approach intimidating situations. It means you do not have to wait around to feel confident. You can do confidence even when your internal alarm bells are screaming at you.
Exactly. You can be terrified and confident at the exact same time.
But I want to pull on a very specific thread that the text leaves dangling here. Because honestly, it's a brilliant piece of writing. The source material actually ends on a cliffhanger.
It does, which is so clever.
Right after Ria points out that people think confident individuals are never nervous, Aman starts to have a realization. He says, wait, are you? And the text just cuts off. Boom, end of scene. Yeah. So what is the implication here? Does this mean that the smiling, comfortable man who was making all those grammar mistakes in front of the crowd, does this mean he was actually terrified on the inside?
Based on the psychological framework Ria has just established, the answer has to be a resounding yes.
Really? He was scared too.
Yes. That is the ultimate secret the text is guiding the reader toward. We look at that imperfect speaker, we see the smile, we see the forward momentum, and we project our own assumptions onto him.
We assume he's just naturally brave.
Right. We assume he possesses some rare magical immunity to anxiety. We assume his heart rate is normal and his palms are dry. But Ria's definition strongly suggests that the imperfect speaker is experiencing the exact same physiological arousal, the exact same nervousness as the paralyzed, silent expert.
Wait, if they are experiencing the exact same physical fear response, why does one guy command the room and the other guy freeze in total silence?
The difference lies entirely in cognitive appraisal.
Cognitive appraisal, meaning how they think about the fear.
Exactly, how they interpret and respond to that physical feeling. In psychology, there's a concept called misattribution of arousal.
Misattribution of arousal. Okay, explain that.
Well, the physical symptoms of fear, racing heart, adrenaline, shallow breath, they are almost identical to the physical symptoms of excitement and readiness.
Oh, wow. That's true. They feel exactly the same in your body.
They do. So the silent expert feels the racing heart, labels it as terror that I am about to be exposed as a fraud, and he freezes.
He tells himself it's a bad thing.
Right. But the imperfect speaker feels the exact same racing heart, labels it as the energy required to perform, and he speaks.
He rebrands the fear into excitement.
Exactly. True confidence, as Ria defines it, is feeling the terror, acknowledging the butterflies in your stomach, knowing with absolute mathematical certainty that you are going to make a mistake, and proceeding regardless.
He feels the fear and does it anyway. That is the difference between being fearless and being courageous.
A huge difference.
Fearlessness is honestly either a biological anomaly or just a complete lack of situational awareness. Like you just don't know you should be scared.
Right, which isn't really a good thing.
Exactly. But courage, which is the actual engine of Ria's imperfect confidence, is feeling the fear, respecting the stakes, but not letting the fear dictate your behavior.
Spot on.
So Ayman's interrupted thought at the end of the text was likely him realizing, wait, are you telling me that everyone who looks confident is actually faking it or actually scared?
And the answer is yes. Everyone is on the edge of the diving board. Everyone's knees are knocking together. But the confident people are simply making the choice to jump instead of standing there analyzing the physics of the water.
Precisely. And let's look a little closer at the mechanics of that choice to jump. The confident speaker isn't oblivious to his mistakes.
Right, he's not deaf.
Exactly. He likely hears the grammatical errors the millisecond they leave his mouth. But he has made a preemptive agreement with himself.
Preemptive agreement, like before he even starts. Yes. He tells himself, I accept my imperfection. By making that internal agreement before he even steps on stage, the mistake loses its weaponized power.
Oh, that is so smart.
When he mispronounces a word, it doesn't trigger a panic attack because it isn't a surprise. It was already factored into his equation.
He already knew it was going to happen.
Exactly. He doesn't have to freeze and recalibrate his entire reality because his goal was never flawless execution. His goal was communication.
This is a monumental paradigm shift.
Yeah.
It moves the control entirely away from external judgment.
Yeah.
What will they think of my mistakes?
Right. It takes the power away from the audience.
And it moves it to internal acceptance. I am willing to be seen trying.
I am willing to be seen trying. That is a profoundly vulnerable yet incredibly powerful place to operate from.
It really is. It strips the audience of their power to judge you because you've already judged and accepted yourself. And this shift in perspective isn't just a clever hack for learning a new language. This is a skeleton key that unlocks almost every intimidating, high-stakes scenario we face in society. And the text doesn't just leave us in the realm of high theory either.
No, Aman actively lists out the practical domains where this applies.
Yes, let's talk about the practical application. Aman specifically enumerates the arenas where this imperfect confidence framework is necessary for success. He lists things like speaking English confidently, talking to new people, giving a presentation, attending an interview, or simply expressing your opinion.
These are the classic social arenas where the pressure to project an image of absolute perfection is historically the most intense.
And consequently, where the freeze response is the most common.
Absolutely.
Let's bring this right down to the ground for the listener and look at the psychology of a job interview. Think about the traditional approach to an interview.
Oh, the traditional approach is just awful.
It's terrible. You are taught to try and turn yourself into a flawless, impenetrable resume reciting machine. You memorize your answers. You try to anticipate every single trap question.
You obsess over maintaining rigid posture and never saying, or like.
Right. You go in there wearing an armor of perfection. But what happens? The interviewer senses the armor. And armor, by its very nature, prevents human connection.
It's cold. It's robotic.
Exactly. But what if you went in armed with Ria's definition of confidence? What if your primary goal wasn't a pristine performance, but genuine connection?
If you apply the imperfect confidence framework to a high-stakes interview, it transforms the entire interpersonal dynamic.
How so? What changes in the room?
When you enter a room obsessed with perfection, your cognitive load is maxed out just trying to maintain the facade. As we discussed, you become robotic. But if you walk in having already accepted that you might stumble over a word or that you might need to take a long, silent pause to genuinely think about a complex question, you project authenticity.
You act like a real human.
Yes. There is actually a well-documented psychological phenomenon known as the pratfall effect.
The pratfall effect. I haven't heard of that one.
It states that highly competent people actually become more likable and more trusted when they make a small, visible mistake.
Wait, making mistake makes them like you more.
Yes, because the mistake humanizes them. It proves they aren't a robot.
That is fascinating. So spilling a little coffee or stumbling on a word might actually get you the job.
In a way, yes. Interviewers, audiences, strangers at a networking event, they are fundamentally hunting for a trustworthy human connection. They want to interact with a real person whose emotional state they can reliably read.
Right, they want to know who they are actually hiring.
Exactly. So when you make a minor mistake in an interview, say you lose your train of thought, and you simply smile, acknowledge it without panic, and course correct, you are giving the interviewer a live demonstration of your resilience.
You are showing them how you handle adversity in real time. That is so much better than just saying, I am a resilient worker on your resume.
Exactly. By giving yourself permission to be imperfect, you give the interviewer permission to relax and actually connect with you as a human being, rather than just evaluating you as a data set.
It all comes back to the smile and continue momentum from Aman's observation.
It really does. It's universal.
And it applies to everything. Think about simply expressing a dissenting opinion at a corporate strategy meeting, or even at a big family dinner.
Oh, family dinners, high stakes for sure.
Right. How often do we stay completely silent because we fear our argument isn't 100% bulletproof? We sit there and think, if someone finds one logical flaw in my premise, or if I don't use the exact right terminology, my credibility will be totally destroyed.
We catastrophize the mistake.
We really do. But if you embrace imperfect confidence, you shift from egocentric to audience-centric. You put the idea out there in all its messy glory. You accept that someone might disagree, you accept that you might have to refine the idea on the fly, but you contribute to the collective intelligence anyway.
And that messy, imperfect contribution is infinitely more valuable to society than the perfect, brilliantly constructed thought that remains permanently trapped in your head.
So true. A messy idea that is shared is better than a perfect idea that is hidden.
The underlying challenge of Aman and Ria's conversation forces us to deeply interrogate what we value more: The safety of silence or the vulnerability of
The
participation.
vulnerability of participation, I love that phrasing.
The world is not shaped, negotiated, or advanced by those who sit on the sidelines waiting for the perfect moment to execute a flawless action. It is shaped by those who are willing to stumble forward into the unknown, making mistakes loudly, visibly, and continuously.
Making mistakes loudly and
Right.
visibly. It goes against every instinct we have, yet it's the only way anything actually gets
Yeah,
done.
exactly.
So let's pull all of these threads together and recap the incredible psychological journey this text took us on today. We started by looking through Amon's eyes at a man standing in front of a crowd, butchering his grammar but entirely commanding the room.
The imperfect speaker.
Right. And we discovered that his success was rooted in emotional contagion and processing fluency. He wasn't successful despite his imperfections, but because he accepted them. He smiled, he maintained his forward momentum, and he prioritized human connection and meaning over technical precision.
We then explored the tragic inverse of that scenario through Ria's observation of the paralyzed experts.
The ones who know everything but say nothing.
Yes, we unpacked the curse of knowledge and the cognitive load that floods the brain when we prioritize syntax over semantics. We saw how the egocentric pursuit of perfection triggers a literal evolutionary freeze response. It traps our best ideas in silence because we fear the social evaluation of a mistake.
And finally, we completely shattered and rebuilt the definition of confidence. We discarded that toxic pop culture myth of the fearless stoic hero. We learned that true confidence is not the absence of nervousness, nor is it a magical feeling of invulnerability.
It's an action.
Right. Confidence is a behavioral action. It is the brave, conscious, and preemptive choice to accept your own inevitable imperfection and do the thing anyway. It is the willingness to feel the terror, relabel that arousal into excitement, and just jump.
It is a radical reframing of how we interface with the world. It takes the paralyzing pressure off the final outcome and places the intrinsic value entirely on the courage of the attempt.
It really does.
It teaches us that the acute discomfort of being seen as imperfect is a temporary biological illusion, but the long-term cost of remaining silent is permanent.
It is a permanent loss of your own potential. And this brings us to the high-level implications for your own life, speaking directly to you, the listener.
The most important part.
We've talked about the psychology, the mirror neurons, and the evolutionary survival instincts. But knowledge is only useful when it is actually applied. So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over today as you navigate your own high-stakes environments.
Think about your own life right now.
Think about your current trajectory, your career, your leadership goals, your relationships. We now know that the pratfall effect proves people trust vulnerability more than they trust polish. We know that audiences will auto-correct your mistakes if you just maintain momentum and make them feel safe.
They want you to succeed.
They really do. So, if true confidence is fundamentally nothing more than the willingness to make mistakes out loud, what critical conversation, what career-defining presentation, or what life-changing connection is waiting for you tomorrow if you simply decide to drop the armor of perfection and allow yourself to be seen trying?
Stop waiting for the fear to go away.
Exactly. Go out there and make a glorious, impactful mess. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.